there's 4 or 5 things, short things I say at the beginning of a meeting, and I'll start right now, even though it's not 1 o'clock. So we get more questions there.
Good.
Before I say those things, as some of you attended my town meetings, but let's assume half of you haven't. So I let you set the agenda. That means usually questions or issues in Washington. It can be people just make statements to me, and if you make a statement and you don't ask for a reaction, then I go on to the next person. So if I don't respond to you, don't get mad at me because I didn't respond to you. And 3, if there's any personal questions about me you want to ask, I ought to try to answer those for you. So let me start out then with point number 1. First of all, I need to thank the library for an opportunity to have this meeting here. Usually
Yes.
we have it at the courthouse, but they're having court today, so I can't go there. Secondly, this is a weekday, so why am I not in Washington? It's because of Easter recess. Number 3, this is the best way to find out what's on people's minds because I can look at you and you can look at me. But if this is the only way I got opinion, even though there might be 125 people here, you don't see so many people face to face. And so I then encourage you to email me or postal mail me, or a lot of people will call in, and if you leave your name and address, we answer your concerns on paper. So that's the way we get most of our two-way communication is through the mail or email. So if that's going to be two-way communication, I got to answer your letter. So if you don't get an answer, write me a nasty letter and ask me why I didn't answer your letter, and something could fall through the cracks. And also, just so you know, we don't turn things around overnight. I get a daily report, and so we're 7,000 behind this week.
Oh my.
But don't worry about being 7,000 behind, because 2 years ago, at one point, we were 36,000 behind.
Oh my.
So we do get a lot of communication that way, and it's really the best way to, it's a good way to keep in touch with what's on people's minds. And then, I think the second to the last thing would be to encourage you to think about some things. If you want my speeches and my press releases, they're on grassley.senate.gov. And my staff does Facebook, but we get a lot of communication from people on Facebook. I do Twitter at Chuck Grassley, or Instagram at Senator Chuck Grassley. That's how I try to encourage people to participate. And sometimes I even say things that are meant to be controversial to get your reaction. Then the last thing would be, somebody's going to ask me a question, and I start out not to answer their question because I didn't understand it. So if I miss the point of your question, don't wait till I give you a 5-minute answer and then tell me I didn't answer your question. And then sometimes you might ask 2 questions and I forget the second one, and then you think I don't want to answer your second one, ask it again. Or sometimes we had this with some high school kids that came to my town meeting, and I hardly ever get anybody under 18 to go to a town meeting, so that's why I'm going to be at Pleasantville High School later on this week.
Oh, excellent.
But some kid asked me a question, and I thought I answered it right. 5 minutes later, some lady back here said, "Well, you didn't answer that girl's question." Well, I wish the girl had told me I didn't answer the question. Okay, who wants to be the first to ask a question? You're first.
I've got something I'd like to have you take back with you. My wife recently had cataract surgery, and this is eye drops that we were required to use. 3 milliliters or 50 drops cost us $285.
So this tube right here is $285.
Yeah, it's more expensive than gold. And here's the box. And I'm going to give you another example. A friend out in Phoenix
We didn't pay that,
got
did we?
bit by a rattlesnake. and he went to Mayo's, and Mayo's, to give him the antivenom shot, charged him $40,000.
Oh,
Just like,
Now, he didn't ask me for a response.
well, the question I ask you is, why don't you introduce legislation to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices?
good question.
The cost of medicine like this, if you follow Congress, you probably know that my finance committee is trying to take some of the secrecy out of drug pricing.
Good.
So hopefully we get the marketplace working, we get down drug pricing. And then the question he asked me, I'd answer this way. You could do what you want, have the government regulate. But now, when the VA does that, the formulary is about 2/3 of what the formulary is for Part Ds. If you got 34 different plans you can choose from, you've got more choice of where you can get your drugs, see? So if you want the formulary to be less, and maybe your doctor can't prescribe something that Part D would pay for, we could do that. But I've started with a premise that you ought to be able to, you and your doctor ought to be able to work out what medicine he thinks you ought to take. Next question.
Not easy.
Yes.
I'm sure you're aware that the multi-employer pension fund is in trouble, in crisis. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. The deregulation from the industry and market turned down in 2000 and 2008 were partly responsible for it. But the big problem was the consent decree in 1982 that took the Central States Pension Fund away from their oversight and gave it to the Department of Labor. And the reason I say that is because the Western Conference of Teamsters was, they had the same challenges that we did, except that they didn't have a consent decree. And their fund is healthy and is going to provide benefits for the foreseeable future. So with that in mind, the consent decree was one of the main problems, and we have a Bush-Lewis Act that is currently in the House, number 397. It has 118 full sponsors. Is there anything in the Senate that you can say is on the same track, or have you guys been talking about this Bush-Lewis Act?
My committee and Senator Alexander's committee that deals with labor issues are working on trying to get a plan that can be adopted. There's a feeling among a lot of people that have dug into this deeper than I have, that the bill that you mentioned is going to not, in other words, a 30-year loan, that you get that at the end of 30 years, that it would come out even, as a lot of people have thought it would. So we're trying to work on something else that will not only take care of the multi-employer plan, but also would beef up the PBGC that guarantees all these plans. Because see, we've got to improve PBGC because the multi-employer plans out of the, if it goes to the government as guaranteed, is going to get less than the single employer plan. So we're working on it, and we are trying to do it in several different ways to beef up the PBGC, take some of the legacy retirement plans out and put them in the PBGC with more funding, and then we're going to have to increase the fees that come from the employer. also for the single employer plans, because by 2025, the PBGC will be broke. So it's, both of them are going to have to be beefed up.
I have a history of
I'd be glad to take
single
it.
states and what has happened throughout the years and from here.
You understand, I didn't comment on your consent agreement because I don't know what those consent agreements were, but if this talks about it, I'll read it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Grassley, first of all, thank you for your long-term and honorable service to our country.
Thank you.
As a county supervisor, I'm very concerned about our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Our roads, as we know, there's a lot of stress on our infrastructure, the way agriculture has went, heavier loads, more loads and stuff. I know early in the stages, the Trump administration recognized this, and they were coming up with some kind of formula where the federal government could help local governments with their infrastructure costs. And I just wanted to know where that's going. There was talk at one time, 50% of qualifying projects, maybe 50% could be paid for by the federal government. I just want to know if anything is moving forward on legislation to help local governments with their stressed infrastructure.
The one thing that is moving, but I don't think it'll move by itself, will do exactly what you're asking. Because it's coming out of the Environment and Public Works Committee, and it deals with the things that you're asking about, mostly roads and bridges. But the whole thought of a massive infrastructure is that it wouldn't only include roads and bridges, it would include other municipal infrastructure, it would include broadband, and I don't know how many different things that you throw into it. And I don't know that something's going to go just on bridges and highways without everything else going with it, with one exception. But I don't think that this is as broadly applicable as what you want. We do have to take some steps to make sure that the 5-year road fund is fully funded. And so that's going to have to be worked out. And we kind of get the idea that that the Environment and Public Works Committee, and I'm not on that committee, is about the only one that's taken it seriously. So I don't see a path yet that I can tell you something's going to be done, but it's one of the few bipartisan things in Congress that's getting a lot of attention.
Good.
See? But I wish I could promise you otherwise. But if you'd asked me the same question a year ago, I would have said, yeah, we're going to get this done beginning late last year or this year. And it hasn't moved any since then. So I don't want to give you a lot of hope, but there is something moving through Environment and Public Works. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thank you for your years of service. And
Yeah.
thank you for making Iowa a leader in the country in wind,
Yeah.
Yes.
wind energy. And 2/3 of voters are concerned about climate change. 58% of voters believe that it is caused by human activity. This is a cancer on our planet, and we need to treat it. There is a bill currently in the House, HF 763, the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, which exempts farmers from carbon fees on diesel fuel. And I would like to know if you have considered bringing something, a companion legislation to the Senate that would be similar to that.
Let me see if I understand what you're talking about, because already fuel used in tractors and stuff that you use on the farm does not pay the road tax.
I understand that, yeah.
So
the
then
red-
what's your question?
Well, this Energy Innovation and Dividend Act will collect a fee on oil, gas, and coal when it comes through the port or out of the mine or out of the well. That fee will go to the Treasury, and an administrative fee will be paid to return those monies to the public in the form of a dividend. This is a bill that's currently in the House.
Yeah.
And it exempts farmers from paying that
I got you.
fee on
got
the
I think the reason they've exempted farmers is because when this came up in one of the previous administrations, I don't know whether it was Bush's or going back to Clinton, there was what we call a carbon tax proposed, and the reason it was defeated is because agriculture uses so much energy and it would have been detrimental to a lot of that segment of the economy. So you're asking me if I would support it with that exemption. That would help. But I think that I would like to look at it in a broader basis. If you want a carbon tax, it brings in so much money that it ought to be part of tax reform and either lower or do away with other taxes we have. Because I'm not one that just piled more money out of the private sector running through government. I'm for what's been the case for about the last 60 or 70 years, about somewhere between 17% and 20% of all the money made in this country goes through the federal treasury. The other, roughly 80%, is left for all of you folks to decide how to spend it and save it, or how to spend it and how to save it, see?
And that's, the point here is that this is not a tax, it's revenue neutral, it will not go to fund anything in the government, it will be turned around and sent back to taxpayers in the form of a dividend, a monthly dividend that will come to their bank accounts.
The carbon fee and dividend.
Yeah, carbon fee and carbon dividend act, and so it will put more money back into the pockets than consumers will spend out by paying higher fuel pumps. And this carbon pricing has been shown to be the fastest and most effective way to bring down carbon emissions.
Yes.
There's different ways to do it,
Okay.
but
And it is
this,
bipartisan.
yeah, it's bipartisan, and the Citizens Climate Lobby is, and we've got this that we can read with you, and this. And
There's only one thing I can say that ideologically, it's better than a lot of government regulation. Using the marketplace, which this would do, it would be better than a lot of government regulation. Go ahead.
I'd like your opinion and then how you voted on the current income tax plan. The federal taxes, I'm a retired state employee. I worked for the state for 37 years, and I paid in $986 in federal income tax this past year when the Trump tax plan kicked in, and Amazon got a $129 million tax refund.
What you paid in taxes, are you telling me you paid more taxes this year than last year?
Oh, yeah.
Because you would be only
It doubled.
only 8%. Now, are you giving me a figure from your 2017 taxes
And it doubled this year.
and your 2018 taxes?
Yes,
Okay.
it doubled what I paid in.
Okay.
And again, Amazon paid, or got a refund of federal taxes of $129 million.
Well, see, I can't compare individual taxes with corporate taxes because they're
Well,
separate.
I mean, just,
Yeah.
if you wrap your head around that,
Well,
that
first
kind
of all,
of, you know.
you would be one of 8% of the people that got a tax increase.
I find that,
Well, if you want to leave your name and address here, I'll get you some statistics. I don't have them in my head.
I've seen a lot of it.
The premise of the question is you're paying more taxes, 99% of the people are paying more than Amazon, right?
Yeah.
yeah,
So respond to that.
Yeah, I'll respond to the corporate tax part of the bill. We had a 35% corporate tax rate, the highest in the industrial world, and in a global economy, we were uncompetitive because of it. We want our industry in America to be competitive because we're in a global market, so we can create jobs by being competitive.
And the people that,
the
the employees at Amazon are making $15 an hour.
Okay, I'll listen to you and then I'll answer.
Okay, thank you. The employees at Amazon are making $15 an hour.
Okay. So then, this standpoint. So we reduced it down to 21%, which is about where the worldwide average is, so we can be competitive. So we did the individual income tax as one part of it, the corporate tax as the other part of it, and I told you why we did the corporate tax the way we did. So obviously, if you were paying 35%, it comes down to 21%, you're going to pay less taxes.
Okay, so then in answer to my question, you did vote for these current
Yeah.
tax policies?
Yeah. Any one of you two people here, the lady in white or the gentleman standing behind you.
My name is Tammy, and I'm representing Americans for Prosperity.
Yeah.
And I want to thank you for your criminal justice reforms work, especially the First Step Act. What I want to ask you, and this is something that's going to help prisoners not go back to jail. What will be your sentence? Is there anything in the
Well, yeah, the second step is more left up to state law than it is federal law. But I think with a large number of people, particularly minorities, that were in prison and lost their civil rights as a result of it, that getting back to voting rights would be the next step. Like, for instance, what Florida did with a constitutional amendment, what our governor is trying to do through a constitutional amendment here in Iowa, to give people an opportunity to be full-fledged citizens and participants in our country. Okay, you're next.
I imagine one of the intentions of these two words is to people the impression that connected positions and whatever items, and perhaps that's true. But the campaign finance reports tell a completely different thing. We look at the 2016 cycle, the average donation, even if we adjust for transfers from authorized committees, was $906,000 $906. And that's the equivalent of $906 on $10,000. The last one, okay, for this quarter, it's 1,536. Now, this disconnect is reflected in the policy that we support. We bring to current number, we focus on the Trump tax cuts. Okay? The average person, bottom quintile of income distribution, their after-tax income only increased by 0.3%. For people in the top quintile, it's 2.9%. That's not even taking into account loss in net social transfers that are changing as a result of paying for this. Okay? Paying for this monstrosity of the bill that, according to neutral analysis, like the tax policies that predict that we're going to have a deficit of $2 trillion by 2028. So my question is, how much longer are we going to perpetuate this fiction? That's what we're going to do. Ordinary individuals. Any neutral analysis will come to the conclusion that you're very much not.
If your question is related to the tax bill, let me say something very clearly. And some of you are going to laugh, so get ready to laugh. But I want to tell you, I don't have this table in my head right now, so I can give it to you. But this tax bill, for every one of the decentiles, you know, the low 10%, the top 10%, the 20%, the 30%, as you divide our income and people that get income into the table. The highest income people got the less tax cut. So this tax cut is more progressive than what we had in the previous legislation. Go ahead.
I represent National Farmers. We market milk for dairymen across 17 states. Iowa's one of them, and we're in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and out to New York, Pennsylvania. The last 4 years, the dairy farmers, we're talking about the mom and pop dairies have gone through hell. The cows have been eating their equity. The milk price has been about $4 under the cost of production. In the meantime, more milk keeps getting dumped onto the market. There's a couple reasons. One, 2014 was an excellent dairy year for everybody, so the smaller operations became more efficient. In the meantime, investor-owned dairies, and I'm talking 5,000, 10,000 cows, 30,000 cows on one location, have continued to pump milk into the market. The milk has come from Michigan, right into Wisconsin, and then spilled into Iowa. And then we run on to a negative PPV. So all of a sudden, we got all these excuses to keep our co-ops in business, so that basis keeps getting higher, all on the backs of dairymen. In the meantime, a lot of dairymen that went out of business in Wisconsin. That's probably the biggest hit. And I'm talking about the dairies from, say, 50 cows to 500 cows. They're like, look at us, right? The operating cost for the plus 1,000 dairy is about $4 per 100. A lot of that could be immigrant labor working for a pretty low wage. We can't expect our people, like the Court Reserve, been third generation to survive in such a, and what's it do to towns like Independence or Manchester or really we're like where I'm at, Northeast Iowa. So we do have a proposal, and it's something I'd like to talk to your office later. It's not something that can be done right now, but we've got family dairy farms going under almost every day right now. The milk prices increased last month, but it's been through, basically, it's a strangulation process. So I'm just going to read one thing off here. So the 1,000 and plus cows are growing. The 50 or less are shrinking by over 60%. This is from 2000 to 2017. Even the cows at 500 cows to 1,000 cows have shrunk 5%. So that tells me a family dairy could possibly be in 500 to 1,000, but it seems like when you've got 30,000 cows or 10,000 cows, such as ferals, they might have more than that even, immigrant labor, can overload our small communities with services that we have to provide. So if you just, I will talk to somebody later. I don't take any more time.
No, here's what we'll do is I'll have her give you the phone number of Stephanie of my staff that does agriculture. Okay. And then you can call her.
Yeah.
We'll give her the direct line,
Yeah, sure.
202-224-4120, the direct line. Then you don't have to go through a receptionist.
Okay.
Mr. Grassley, I know my grandpa told me you once were a farmer, right? You were once my age, and I hope that I am able to keep our family farm going. I don't ask for much. I don't ask to be a millionaire. I don't need to be famous. I don't need nothing. I just like to keep the dairy farm going. And with all this surplus coming our way, we're losing our markets. This is real hard. We're not. The average age of they say the average age of the farmer is 57. All that ring well. There's not going to be my generation out here. There's not, unless something changes. We can't keep producing milk. It'll cost a lot more than we're not making. We can't keep things going. Help us out.
I assume we did in the farm bill that came out before Christmas doesn't do enough for dairy. There's something that's got to be out here by early June.
We need it now.
We need it now.
We need it now.
We're getting choked off.
We're taking loans to pay bills. We need it now.
That's a step in the right direction. And we're not suggesting supply management. This would be an internal within the dairy industry. The big dairies can survive. We're not to eliminate the big dairy, but we want a chance for the average size dairy, I think is around 200 cows, for them to also survive and thrive, because they are the ones that are supporting these local communities. These huge dairies, and you can see in other sectors of agriculture, it's comes from not the local area. The money isn't borrowed in the local area, the hardware, the feed, doesn't matter what it is, it's bottom line price. cars entered into the bottling over in Indiana now. Their smallest load you're gonna take is a semi-tanker load of milk. So what happens, all of a sudden, the last 2 years, we've had semi-tanker loads of milk just floating around in the country at surplus, basically. I mean, they've been selling it at $4 and $5 under the market, and then you have to trade on it. When if you follow kind of what I'm saying, there's so much milk floating around that it depresses in areas like, such as Iowa or Wisconsin that were kind of doing their own thing, and Minnesota. So that helps a little bit. Going from New York even, and Michigan, of course. That's where the problem lies when these huge dairies keep pumping this milk out, and then guys this size lose milk at access.
About $170 a day, we run a deficit. And it's coming out eating it. It don't sound like much when you take that over the field.
We figured it costs us $175 to walk down to our barn every day. Milk cows. A day.
And it is a 24/7 type of operation. It's not a 40-hour work week.
And if you ask me, it's a supply and demand issue, but the demand, we've always been here. We've always been here. I'd be fourth generation if I get that far. But a 26-year-old can't.
My family is a 4-generation family. My grandchildren's are all over here. Since January, I think of 2018, corn prices are down $44 a bushel, and soybeans are down $205 a bushel. Land prices are dropping, and farmers are starting to lose their land. What is the government going to do this year? Farmers don't want handouts from taxpayers. They want open markets where they can compete and sell, and the tariffs are really screwing it all up. What are we going to do as a government? How can we help the farmers out? Because they make long-range plans on equipment and land and inputs and all of those things ahead of time. And then when something changes as drastically and quickly as the tariffs did, that totally throws them off. And so anybody gets, starting out and, right on the edge most of the time, and that doesn't have a lot of backup, capital, they're having a really hard time making it. And some people with middle-sized farms are having
When you use the word farmers want market,
they want free markets so that they can compete on the world market. We free market instead.
Yeah.
Number one, you get the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement through the Congress and through Mexican Congress and through the Parliament of Canada. And number two, I think by early June, we're going to have signed an agreement that's already been pretty much agreed to with China. That's where the market will be improved. Yeah. Back in the corner.
Hi, Senator Grassley, I'm from Iowa. If we need to make an observation first, it's very, I'm learning a lot, hearing stories from people who are farmers that grow up on the tangents of the farm. But my observation is nothing they're sharing. Yeah, nothing that they've shared with you could possibly be new to you. You have represented Iowa for decades, and you're very powerful senator. They're tweeting about things that you should have been aware of for a pretty long time. So that's extremely frustrating to me. Now, the positive side is when this gentleman said something about immigrant labor division, expand on that. I wonder if you would agree with the Des Moines Register editorial board that said, we welcome refugees to Iowa, we need them. We need the labor.
I do agree with that, and if we could get, there's three categories of people that we need, not only in Iowa, but in the United States. One would be on-skilled workers, one would be agricultural workers, and the other ones would be the professional people. And if we could get, those bills are relatively non-controversial. If you could get to the Senate floor, a bill that's simple, and just keep it to that, But you know what happens every time you get an immigration bill to the Senate? You got people on the right that think you can load up 12 million people and get them out of the country. And you got people on the left who would say, we gotta legalize everybody yesterday. You never get to a consensus on things.
You sort of have to delegate the
Thank
Thank you. Yes, exactly. The experience to go through a deal like this. Don't just stand back and say, oh, it's too tough. We're here, you are clear in success. You are
You don't need to worry about me over deals. We have in the chairmanship of my committee, we have 61 bills come out, they're all bipartisan bills.
Good.
Senator, I'm concerned about deficit spending. It seems it doesn't matter which party's in the White House or at control of the Senate, some party can like a government like we have now. And at some point, I believe we will hit the limit. And if it implodes, we're going to take the whole world down with us. And I'm sure you'll say, well, I've tried to do this, well, it hasn't been successful. And I can say that to any member of Congress, we've tried, it hasn't been successful. Is there anything new coming along so that this doesn't hit us all of a sudden? And we thought the 30s were bad. That's going to be nothing like what will hit if the United States goes under and has a problem like Greece did some years ago, they can't pay their bills. Because we're so large, and as you talked earlier about a global economy, we are a major player for demand. We pull from other countries, and we won't be buying from them. Everything will go, but what are you trying to do differently so that we don't improve at some point? And I think at some point we will hit that limit. Fortunately, we're not there yet. That's my comment.
And what I would recommend, if I had the power to legislate, you said I had, I'd be a constitutional amendment. Fine with that.
Okay, well,
That's what I would do. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Grassley, Senator Grassley. Florida the People Act is a once-in-a-generation legislation to strengthen our American democracy. It expands voting rights, including a national election day federal holiday.
That's a good idea.
And tackles secret donor money and campaign financing. But I understand that Majority Leader McConnell is blocking this legislation before you even get a chance to weigh in. This bill improves voting access, promotes integrity, and ensures security for our elections. Senator Grassley, would you support this bill that restores voter confidence in democracy?
What it would do, I'm not sure it would restore people's faith in democracy. What it would do is federalize out of Washington, D.C. every election law that we have in the 50 separate states.
But the states are there to suppress voters. And we need the feds to come in and make it more generalized so states aren't cheating. Like what happened in Georgia.
I don't think Washington's got all the answers to everything.
So you don't support the bill? Duh.
Did you, I thought you were raising your hand up. Who's got their hand up? Go ahead, sir.
Senator, there's a bill in the House right now, H.R. 1553, and it would change the cost of living allowance for senior citizens, particularly Social Security recipients, veteran retirees, and federal retirees, which is who I'm speaking for today. I'm a Congressional District Liaison for NARF, Federal Employees Organization. That bill would change the CPI from CPIW, the urban wage earners CPI, to CPIE, which is based more on elderly people's needs. We all know that our medical bills get a lot steeper as we get older. And if such a bill comes to the Senate, would you be willing to support it? Or would you be willing perhaps to even introduce it?
No, the only way I'm going to deal with Social Security is when you deal with the 75-year longevity of it. As the trustees just came out yesterday and said that everything will, all the surplus will be used up by 2035, and we ought to be working, instead of doing what you're asking us to do, we ought to be working on something that will save Social Security for our children and grandchildren.
Perhaps we should make the Navy have bake sales to build another carrier.
That's basically what the rest of us is always asked to do, tighten our belts. The military gets more year in and year out. What do we accomplish with our wars? We've been in Afghanistan now longer than any war in our history. What have we accomplished for the billions of dollars that we put into the military?
And what about how much they have accounted for? Their budgeting in the military.
Yeah, when was the last time that was audited?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Not terribly, but I can say.
The only thing I can answer for you is, not only is Social Security part of the social fabric of America, and we ought to maintain it.
Yes,
And I want to maintain it for our children and grandchildren.
yes.
And so what you're asking me to do would do more for senior citizens today and then make it more difficult for our children and grandchildren for when we try to fix it for that. And the other thing I would say to you is don't forget the national defense is the #1 responsibility of the federal government, and only the federal government can do it. State and local governments can't do it.
A question, Fred. Why haven't you pushed for the bill you and Senator Rumsfeld sponsored that would require transparency to make the Mueller report public?
Well, we have. That's what introducing the bill is, a bipartisan bill.
Yeah, I mean, the bill that they haven't acted on yet.
Well, because I'm not chairman of the committee. If I'm chairman of the committee, it would have been on the agenda a month ago.
Thank you.
Okay.
You ready? First of all, thank you.
Wait until I get a little closer. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for your service in the Senate. As a future teacher, one of the things I think I see a problem with is that so many kids today are told to go to college anymore. And it's just a spiel, I think, anymore that kids are hearing the free college from so many people that they're going to somehow pay for that, or the government's going to pay for that. I see a lot of kids who work with their hands. They don't work with their, brain. And trade I think are really great things. And they're not being emphasized enough, I think, in America. And I think that would really help boom our economy. So how can we emphasize trade schools more to our kids rather than just always telling them that 4-year college is available, that we have other options that will help grow our economy?
Let me tell you how I sense what he's talking about. He brings up a very major issue now that we ought to consider. And what I visit a lot of factories. They have Q&As with people that can't come to these town meetings. And I've been impressed, 4 or 5 factories in 4 or 5 different towns that I've visited with. They say, getting back to what the lady asked about immigration, we need some additional help. And the sort of craftsman you're talking about is part of it. And they said, we start going in junior high and high school to explain to people what we have right here in our own town. And it's beginning to show off that we can maybe keep some of these young people here, and you don't necessarily have to have a college degree to have a good life ahead.
Yeah.
And I think it's my generation that started the attitude that if you don't have a college degree, you don't amount to Halloween. And so just like anything less than that is not being a worthy component of our society. And you're bringing out the fact that any job that's productive and people can make a living, provide for the family, we ought to honor all that sort of job.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
And I think you're getting some feeling that even the college programs that we have out of the federal government ought to head in the direction you're talking about. Not to the exclusion of the other, but that has been ignored.
Yeah, trade schools just haven't been emphasized, and some kids work on it. not impacted the unemployment.
Well, I don't know who wants to be next year. And I want to get everybody, you haven't asked a question.
Senator Grassley, you're chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, the panel that would be responsible for drafting a new health care law if the ACA is repealed. What is your plan to make Americans like myself covered, those of us with pre-existing conditions, people who are on their parents' insurance, and again, people like myself who need life guaranteeing medication? We would lose our insurance and I'd probably be dead in 2 months.
Well, there's a lot of, and she's asking only because the courts may declare it unconstitutional. I don't think the courts are going to declare it unconstitutional.
You've voted 7 times to repeal it.
Yes.
Why? What are you going to do for people like myself?
Right. First of all, it's not going to get repealed.
You voted to repeal it. I mean, I'm going to ask you, let me restate my question. I want you to answer me personally, as a person whose life depends on insurance. I would be dead in 60 days or less without the Affordable Care Act.
Is it because of pre-existing?
Yes, and because of life guaranteed medications.
There's no question about keeping pre-existing conditions as a part of any.
It's only the Affordable Care Act that guarantees that.
If that's your question. And so the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land, and it's not going to be repealed by Congress. You think it's going to be repealed tomorrow?
If you continue to vote to repeal it, it will be.
The last time we voted for repeal was when McCain voted the other way, and there's no chance of repealing it now. Besides, if we pass in the Senate, it won't get through the United States House of Representatives. So what are you worried about?
No.
They're threatening my life.
Why do you vote the way you do?
Yeah, we did.
If it comes up for vote again, how are you going to vote?
You gonna vote for him again? For the 8th?
Let's say it does.
Don't ask me a hypothetical question.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That had to be said.
Well, you've got a lot of work trying to get EPA follow that. Appreciate very much.
Okay.
But they don't seem to be doing it. What are the chances of succeeding at
Okay. According to EPA, the regulations want to be done to get E15 marketed during the summer by June the 1st. That's what the EPA director told me. The other thing that's controversial is a waiver for small refineries. And we're told that, and I'm not as certain of this as I am when I get told you, because I got to take the administrator's word for it, but he said he's going to be more cautious in issuing waivers than who it was. And we've also sent an investigation to the Department of Energy that recommends who can get waivers to see why they aren't following their rules the way they should be. They're granting them to companies that make big profit, and it's wrong. See, 18 months ago when this all started, the rent certificates were 80 cents. So everybody said for small refineries that can't blend ethanol with petroleum, that it was a hardship case for it. Now it's down to 20 cents. So what's the hardship case? When they got the price of rent certificate down to where they are, and we shouldn't be giving anyway. If the high price of rent certificates was the reason we're granting them in the first place. Go ahead.
Senator Grassley, my name is Steve Gellman, and I am one of 3 members of the board of directors of a national organization called Farmers for Free Trade. It's chaired by your former colleagues, Senator Max Baucus and Senator Richard Lee. Farmers for Free Trade at this time is on a caravan through Iowa supporting the USMCA. We think this is very important for agriculture, very important for both large and small farmers, and we know you're supporting, and I'd like to thank you for your support for this trade agreement and other trade agreements.
If you can do anything to get Trump off of tariffs for aluminum and steel, it'll pass very easily, I believe. And when we had a meeting at the White House with the president on it, I said something like, agreement that he wants the Senate to pass. And I said, don't you think you ought to take the tariffs off? He said, no.
Oh, God.
So then he's got to know that if he wants a victory, he's got to take these tariffs off. It's got to be done pretty soon in Canada, because I talked to the foreign minister of Canada. And if they don't get it done by June, they're going to turn for their election in October. And then if you don't get it done this year, it's not going to be done next year in the presidential election year. I mean, that's just a fact of life. So whatever your organization can do to put pressure on the president to get rid of those tariffs, that's what we got to do. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
I have an observation. The farm bill, they call it the farm bill. To me, it's a bad joke. I am a dairy farmer, but 85% of the farm bill does not go to farmers like everybody thinks. Okay? And then I'm talking to people in other towns, Manchester and around, who have businesses who want to come in, but they can't get people to work because the government is paying people more money to not work than to work. Maybe we need to bring that down just a little bit to make them want to go out and get a job. I'm sorry, I work 24/7 and I have 6 kids I've raised by myself. I have two in college now, a third one going to college this year. I'm really scared I'll lose my farm because there's so many people getting paid to not work in this country. There are people who everything's free, and I have a real issue with this because that's also driving a whole lot of other things around this country. I pay for all my dental, I pay for all my medical, I pay for every penny of my kids. And I have people who give me crap because I have 6 of them. I'm one of 12, and my parents managed to raise us on nothing. So why can't other people get out and actually work?
I have some sympathy for what you say, but let me tell you, it's something that you aren't going to like because it's a process answer to your question, and nobody wants process answers. They want substantive answers. The House of Representatives, in their farm bill, did exactly what you want. And remember, it takes 60 votes to get a bill out of the United States Senate. It's divided 53 to 47 Republicans and Democrats. And if we go along with what the House wanted to do, even though a lot of us were willing to do that, we wouldn't have had any farm bill at all. So that's why we ended up doing what we ended up doing, not going along with what the House wanted to do, putting work requirements in the food stamps.
Well, I don't
They
know
do
what
have
the big
work
problem
requirements
with
and
that.
food stamps, because I used to work in the food stamp department myself.
But do they check it?
Yes, they do.
Monthly.
Can you come in here?
I've always worked until the last 5 years, but I've been hit with a network of people that have been suppressing me. And I've only had to go on Medicaid because of that. I did write you a note on Twitter, but I didn't get a response from it. That was last year.
You probably won't get a response on Twitter. You get a response on Facebook.
Okay.
Now, to answer your question, there was, under the House bill, there were people that were seniors, people that were disabled, and people with children under a certain age. I don't know the exact age. They would have been exempted, but the others would have had a work requirement in the House bill.
If they're single.
Go ahead.
Senator Grassley, thank you for being here today.
Yes.
I'm going to get emotional, and I don't know why. I have an 8-year-old granddaughter, and she's asked me, Grandma, how can we have a president who's a bully? You conduct yourself. When they disagree with you, why can't we get our president to understand how important that is? We are the laughing stock of the world
Of the
right now.
world.
So how do you reconcile yourself being one of the leaders of the Republican Party?
And supporting them.
I reconcile it this way, that we learned a lesson from King George III, that one person told everybody else what rights you had and didn't have. We had a revolution. We wrote a constitution. So one person didn't run this country. You had executive, legislative, judicial branches. And I am a member of the legislative branch of government. I create policy. So what I can do, like you just heard me do, when I disagree with the president on trade, I tell him. When I disagree with his not wanting anybody but chairman to do oversight work, well, that leaves out 480 members of Congress. If you're just going to answer letters of chairman, so we got that changed. And I don't know how many other things that we're involved in. A lot of things on this trade issue that we talk about. So I'm going to have to deal with the president on policy, and I'm not going to do what I have to do because that's my job as your senator. When I disagree with him, I'm going to tell him I disagree with him. You heard me what I said, and 5 other senators heard that conversation.
And we
But
employ
please
you.
encourage your other Republican senators and congressmen or women to do the same thing. And maybe that's the way we'll change his behavior.
Yeah.
I have a question in reference to the tax bill of 2017 as well. Could you please expound upon how exactly that bill encourages corporations to hire more people?
Yeah.
We've heard a lot about treasury buybacks. We've heard about a lot of jobs still going overseas. We've heard about government, things such as work search requirements. What specific requirements were there of corporations to hire more people?
Okay. There's not anything like that in the tax bill. In fact, there isn't anything like that in any bill Congress passes that somebody's got to hire so many people. What this does then is, why do you think for 2 or 3 decades, our corporations would park money overseas, $2.5 trillion parked overseas? Because when it's brought home, it got hit with a 35% tax bracket, so they didn't bring it home until they needed it. Or today you can borrow money cheaper than you can pay tax on it, so just leave it overseas. So that money comes home now, and it's capital to invest to hire people. See, we've got the...
That's the theory, but is that the reality?
Exactly.
Well, look at the employment percentage you read every month. 3.8% unemployment, the highest employment in 50 years.
Because everybody's doing 2 jobs. Yeah, because they can't make a living off
You want
one
to be
job.
next?
We have time for one more question.
I do.
Do you personally believe that any of Iowa's soybean farmers will lose their farms this year as a result of Mr. Trump's soybean tariffs from China? And if they do you think that will benefit corporate farming?
The only thing I can tell you is I don't have any statistics on what you're asking, but in a 10-year period of time now, bankruptcies are 50% higher than they were 10 years ago. Now, I don't know whether that means 10 farmers or 100 farmers or 1,000 farmers. I don't know. But, and so that's the best answer I can give you. Thank you all very much for coming. Those folks of you, I forgot to announce this ahead of time, but for your press conference, we're going to meet in a room right here.
Do you know about that?